Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us. So, today, we're diving into a trap, a really fascinating, honestly kind of dangerous trap that almost all of us fall into without even realizing it. We're going to look at why taking incredibly complex life decisions and compressing them down into a single, solitary score is a terrible idea. Seriously, by the end of this, you'll be looking at the metrics that run your world in a completely different way.
Okay, let's quickly look at our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the 300-year-old shortcut, when the number fails, the PVPP framework, the containment theorem, real-world addiction recovery, and finally, trajectories over single scores.
Part 1, the 300-year-old shortcut.
It is truly mind-blowing, and yeah, a little terrifying, how one specific mathematical shortcut has completely dominated human decision-making for 3 centuries. Think about it. Almost every time we try to figure out how people make choices, like which job to take, what house to buy, which risks to run, we eventually do the exact same thing. We take everything that actually matters, all the nuance, the messy context, and we just compress it into a single number. Economists like to call this number utility. The idea is you rank your choices, pick the highest score, and boom, problem solved, right?
Well, this definitely isn't a new trend. This shortcut goes all the way back to 1738. There was this mathematician, Daniel Bernoulli, and he was trying to solve a gambling puzzle with a coin flip. He basically proposed that people don't just try to maximize their money, they try to maximize their personal inner worth. Over the 20th century, this idea got polished up and literally became a load-bearing pillar of modern economics. And today, in the 2020s, it is the invisible engine running everything. The reward signals steering AI, the risk scores approving your bank loan, the algorithms deciding what pops up on your social media feed, they're all direct descendants of Bernoulli's big idea. Just boil it all down to one number and optimize it.
Part 2, when the number fails.
But here is the fatal flaw with this whole single score setup. A number never shrugs. It never taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, actually, this option is physically impossible. You might have an incredibly attractive option, a choice with just glowing metrics, a sky-high score. But underneath it all, your actual capacity to pull it off is silently rotting away. Now contrast that with a viable option, one that actually clears the hard, real-world constraints. A system that only stares at an aggregated utility score, it literally cannot tell the difference between the two. It's not malicious, it's just blind. It has no way to see the massive gap between looking great on a spreadsheet and actually surviving in reality.
There's this brilliant quote from our source material that hits the nail on the head. It says a single score is, quote, a useful reading on the dashboard that should never be handed the steering wheel. It's a perfect analogy, right? If you let the metric drive the car and you completely ignore your actual constraints, you are going to crash. A shortcut might save you some money or bump up your score in the short term, but it could completely destroy your ability to bounce back when things inevitably go wrong.
Part 3, the PVP framework.
So, how in the world do we fix this? Well, it requires a massive paradigm shift. We need a constraint-first system, specifically something called the PVPP framework. Now, PVPP stands for productive value minus productive power. I know, it sounds super academic, but it's actually incredibly practical. In this model, power is your actual capacity to carry out an action, keep it going, and recover if it totally flops. Value is just what the action gives you, the benefits. The whole framework boils down to this: a choice that looks super valuable but completely exhausts your power or capacity to survive is a terrible choice, period. It doesn't matter how high the score is.
And this is exactly how truly well-run organizations operate. It's a simple 2-step dance. Step 1, the viability gate. You first have to ask, are these options even permissible? Do they clear our hard constraints? Step 2, the ranking. Only after an option passes that viability gate do you rank what's left. Gate first, rank second. Ranking is obviously important, but the gate has to come first, every single time.
Part 4, the containment theorem. Now, this isn't just some nice, intuitive philosophy. There's hardcore math backing this up. It's called the containment theorem. And it's fascinating because it's not just another new score to track. Think of it more like a certificate or a license to use your old score. It mathematically proves exactly when a simple average and that strict gate-first procedure agree perfectly. It basically draws a precise, checkable boundary that says, okay, as long as you're inside the specific region, your single number is safe. You can trust it. But here is what is truly terrifying. What happens when you step outside that boundary? It triggers something called the flip. You can hold your entire decision structure completely fixed, change just one tiny constraint that the simple score wasn't paying attention to, and watch the score quietly invert. It will confidently, blindly recommend the absolute worst, most disastrous option without a single warning light going off. It flips because that single number was never watching the viability gate in the first place.
Part 5. Real-world addiction recovery.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit because this mathematical flaw isn't just about economics. It has visceral life or death applications. Take modern psychiatry. Today, substance use disorder, or SUD, is diagnosed using a broad dimensional framework. The idea is to move away from a simple addicted or not addicted binary and look at it as a spectrum from mild to severe. But how do they measure that spectrum? With a single symptom count score. If you meet 2 to 3 criteria, it's mild. 6 or more, it's severe. Do you see the parallel here? We are once again taking an incredibly complex human experience and compressing it down into a single severity number. Just look at the contrast here. A single diagnostic score measures a fixed state in time. You are mild or you are severe right now. But real recovery trajectories, those are dynamic, messy journeys that unfold over decades. The data shows us that 2 people can have the exact same severity score on a clipboard, yet experience wildly different recovery paths. One person might hit rapid, durable remission, while another might go through agonizing cycles of relapse for years. A single score just physically cannot capture that kind of trajectory.
Part 6. Trajectories over single scores.
To really grasp this downward progression, the sources outline a model called the alcohol staircase. It starts at step 1, the social drinker. Alcohol is around, but it's not central. And honestly, society basically rewards you for being on the step. Then you drop to step 2, the abusive drinker, where alcohol becomes recurrently harmful, often used to self-medicate. But step 3, that is the critical transition, psychologically addicted. This is the total collapse of a person's viability gate. Alcohol becomes this internal necessity just to cope with daily life. And finally, you hit step 4, physically addicted. Now the body is trapped right along with the mind, bringing on severe physical withdrawals. A single severity score completely misses the nuance of these human viability gates failing, one by one.
When someone finally reaches abstinence, they stop falling down that staircase. But getting sober is just the start. As this powerful quote from the text reminds us, recovery is not simply the absence of alcohol. It is the gradual development of a different way of living. If you just take away the substance, you might end up with what's called dry drunk syndrome. You're abstinent, sure, but you still completely lack the capacity to cope with life. True recovery is about actively rebuilding that capacity, rebuilding your productive power. It's a perfect mirror of the PVPB framework. You absolutely have to rebuild your viability gate before you can safely start ranking your life's choices again.
And we know for a fact that recovery is this complex trajectory and not a static score because of an amazing convergence of evidence. We're talking about 5 completely independent fields of science pointing to the exact same conclusion. We have massive population studies, long-term longitudinal research tracking people for decades, everyday clinical observations, cutting-edge neuroscience mapping how the brain adapts, and literally over 200 years of historical medical records. They all independently confirm that people recover differently, and you just can't stuff those differences into one static number. Which brings us to our final thought for today. We've seen how the maths of the containment theorem proves exactly when a score fails us. And we've seen the deeply human, devastating stakes of that failure when it comes to addiction recovery. So I want to leave you with a question to chew on. What other parts of your life, maybe your career, your finances, even your health, are being steered by a single number that hasn't actually earned its authority? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep questioning the metrics, and I'll catch you next time.